So news tonight that Kurt Zouma's brother, has been suspended whilst an RSPCA investigation is taking place into the events surrounding the video of Kurt Zouma and his family cat. It's a story which, of course, we reflected on a lot last night, and I think we should have a look at again this evening. West Ham United have fined Kurt Zouma the maximum amount possible. The fee will be donated to animal welfare charities after a video emerged of him kicking his cat. Zouma played for West Ham on Tuesday night. The club's received a backlash of criticism from many quarters. German sportswear firm Adidas announced on Wednesday it had ended its deal with the 27-year-old. Also Wednesday, West Ham sponsor Experience Kismi said that due to recent events, it would end its deal with the club. More than 150,000 people have signed an online petition calling for Zouma to be prosecuted. One of West Ham's sponsors, Vitality's, also suspended a deal with the club. Let's hear from Matt Himsworth now, who's a media lawyer and director of B5 Consultancy, a company which he runs with two football players, advising clubs on reputation, off-pitch support and educating players with off-pitch matters. I spoke to Matt a little while ago. We started by talking about how important it is and how much work goes into ensuring that people create good reputations.
We do work with lads from a very young age, under nines as the youngest age group. We start talking to them about how they use their smartphone. We talk to them about good quality behaviours on that. And ultimately, I guess there's an aspect of reputation to that, because you want to protect the reputation of the boys as they grow into men and become football players in the club as well. But the reason reputation is important, I think, particularly when you're a high-profile individual, is how it impacts you as a human being. My job has been for nearly 20 years now as a media lawyer, and one of the most important aspects of my job when a player's on the front page of the Sun or the Mirror is not just trying to undo some of the damage and protect his reputation, it's actually trying to be a friend and try and help him with his mental health. Because I can tell you what, when you think the world is against you, when you think you've absolutely messed up and the world hates you for it, as I'm sure that's how Kurt Zouma feels right now, the mental anguish and impact is absolutely enormous. Not just for him individually, but within the family unit as well. And obviously there's a familial issue here as well. I'm pretty sure that Kurt Zouma will feel as though he let Kurt down by posting that on his Snapchat account. Playing in the National League for Dagenham and Redbridge, he doesn't get the same level of attention on his social media as Kurt will. But as soon as Kurt's involved in it, and I mean, I should be absolutely clear, this is an animal welfare issue, and what he did was pretty despicable. But as soon as Kurt features it in his videos doing something outrageous, then of course it was inevitable that someone's going to download it and shift it on. But the impact on the Zouma family, reputationally massive, but personally as well, I think. I know that sympathy will be in pretty short supply for Kurt and Johan at the moment, but I do think of those moments about what it must be like to be within their family unit at the moment. It doesn't matter how well paid you are or what an exciting job you have and what a great profile you have. They're all human beings, these boys. They all come from different backgrounds, and they all have to face up to how difficult these things can be.
I suppose, as you say, yes, individually, that there can be quite a lot of damage, which is as a consequence of actions. Is that the same from a corporate point of view? And in this respect, we're talking corporately, we're talking about a football club in the shape of West Ham United, and not just because of the actions of an individual, but then how that organisation reacts to that particular piece of behaviour.
Well, I think it is because, football clubs do so much good in terms of trying to shift agendas, move towards inclusivity, etc. And Tottenham today have announced their report on the use of the Y word, and I think that's a hugely important piece. And because they can do a lot of good, they have opportunities at certain points when they deal with their players and mistakes that have been made to see if that they can be a force for good in how they deal with that. And I think there was a real missed opportunity on Tuesday night. They had a perfectly good centre-back on the bench in Issa Diop who could have played instead of Kurt Zouma. And actually what I think they did is increase the pressure on Kurt for playing. He was booed by his own fans on that night. And going back to what I said about how it impacts the player, that would have been pretty hard to take. But I think David Moyes is clearly a good man. But I think he allowed the kind of the Shankly quote to come into his mind, which I think was actually taken out of context. I think Shankly was regretting some of the decisions he made when he said, people say football's about life and death. It's more important than that. Football is, to use the Arrigo Sacchi quote, one of the most important of the least important things. Yeah. So things like kindness, respect, even when that's bringing animals into the equation, are more important than football. And I think there was an opportunity there to show how seriously it was taken, to drop him for that game. And there's a quote, I mean, forgive me for being a bit of a lawyer on this, but there's a quote that's been used in the judiciary for centuries, which is that justice must not only be done, it must be seen to be done. And I think it would have sent a really strong message that Kurt was being disciplined for this. And I'm sure that Kurt feels as though he deserves to be punished, and will accept any punishment that's coming his way. And I think in dropping him for that game against Watford, I think it would have sent that message. It would have played out much better for Kurt. He would have been able to redeem himself more quickly, having been suitably punished for his transgression. And I think West Ham would have been seen to be doing morally the right thing. And I think in this social media age, which is so invasive now, corporations need to be seen to be doing the right thing as quickly as possible, which makes it a very difficult job, you know, running the communications department and running football clubs, etc.
How much work, therefore, do you do to... I mean, obviously, if Kurt hadn't done what the video appears to show that he's done, then this would never have been an issue. But how much work do you do with individuals, with clubs? You know, how much work is there to be done to make sure that people, you know, don't damage their reputation, don't bring, you know, the negative side of what can happen onto them?
Well, there's three behaviours we talk to academy groups about, and that's from under 9s, where we do very gentle and fun sessions with them, up to 18s and 23s when they're the cusp of first team football. Those three behaviours are being risk averse, being respectful, and being defensive, and that is in every aspect of when they pick their smartphone up. You know, when someone slides into their DMs, when they're having fun with their friends, or when they're sending messages to people. But we always emphasise to them that middle one, respect, is everything. You know, what Kurt did, as I said, was despicable, and I'm sure on reflection he would feel that himself. If he didn't act in that hugely disrespectful way to his pet, you don't need to worry about what Johan puts on his Snapchat. So being risk averse and defensive comes secondary to that, and it is absolutely crucial that they learn that, and also learn how others respond to them as footballers. You know, it's I don't want to use a phrase, a privileged place to be a football player, because I tell you what, these boys are super talented and work super hard to get where they are. But it's certainly seen as a privileged position. So therefore, people respond to footballers a lot differently than they respond to anyone else, even other celebrities. You only need to look at the Man City boys that were out having a meal, so Pep said the other night. There were cameras in their faces because they play for Manchester City. So that level of understanding is crucial, and clubs work really blooming hard, you know, to dip this across the academies. And in fact, we have been allowed in to do some sessions with first team squads. It's the one thing I really push, and I know certain people within the clubs push for it as well, is let's get you in front of the first team squads, because they're the boys that need it the most, because they are already in the limelight. They are already vulnerable. But it's more difficult in first-team squads because their schedules are more preciously protected. And, you know, we were doing more sessions with first-team squads 2 years ago because there was no pandemic back then. So you can understand why the idea of getting me or my colleagues Fraser or Lee in to talk to a group of first-team lads when we're in the middle of a pandemic is not quite so easy to do. And you lose a bit of the impact of doing stuff on Teams and Zoom. We've done some great sessions with some of the Women's Super League team, and they've been really receptive to it, but it's been on Zoom. And you do miss a little bit of the kind of back and forth and the understanding that comes from doing it face-to-face.
And is there a way back from a situation like this? I mean, obviously, as you say, there's the impact it has individually. There is an impact from a club point of view in West Ham, but can you rebuild reputation? Again, it wasn't a quote that reputation takes an age to develop. It can be lost in seconds. Can you rebuild?
Yes, you can. I mean, that quote, Warren Buffett, it is absolutely right. But there's always redemption. I'm a huge believer in human redemption at the best of times. But it can be difficult to escape some elements of your past. I've known Stan Collymore for many years, and I know Stan's constantly reminded of the mistakes of his past. He made some terrible mistakes as a young man, and now I think Stan must be 50 now, and he's still reminded of them now every day when he's on social media. And you only need to go to Wikipedia now to look at Kurt's Wikipedia page, paragraph 4, personal life, paragraph 4.1, animal abuse. And it's incredibly unfortunate that I'm sure he's right in saying that it's a relatively isolated incident, but he will now be known as the person that drop-kicked his cat, which is a horrific thing to be known for. And of course, he can only count himself responsible for that legacy. But, everyone's entitled to rehabilitation and redemption, for all but the most serious of offences. And I'm sure it is important that West Ham support him whilst also disciplining him, and he will be well supported. And he needs to, as I always say to players when they find themselves in this position, get his head down, show that he's remorseful for it, and carry on playing football, which is what these lads are good at. And it's important we say this. So we look at these boys and we think, crikey, they're superheroes. They're living their incredible lives. They're incredibly rich. They can do almost superhuman things on a football pitch. But as I said towards the beginning of this, they're normal kids. They really are. And I'm 42 now. I look at these kids and I think they really are kids, even at the age of 26. So they're very fallible. They make poor decisions sometimes. So I guess it's our job as the people that look after them in football to try and urge them, educate them to make good decisions, which is why we talk about not just how you present yourself on social media and publicly, but how they conduct themselves amongst other people, members of the public and whoever else. And relationships is one that comes up a lot. We talk really frankly to them about that, how they treat people in relationships. Treating people that you have relationships with well stands you in good stead. It's the right thing to do, and they'll treat you well as well.
That's Matt Himsworth, who's a media lawyer and director of B5 Consultancy. It's a company he runs with two footballers, advising clubs on reputation, off-pitch support, educating players and off-pitch matters as well. Works with the former Brentford AFC and Wimbledon defender Fraser Franks and Lee Nicol, who currently plays for Crystal Palace Women